Hi everyone, I'm Ian and I am an owner of a early VIN Rivian R1T pickup, which is now out of warranty, and so I find myself more and more leaning into DIY repairs. I grew up mostly working on my own vehicles, motorcycles, bicycles, so why should the truck be any different at this point, especially with the wait times at some of the service centers. I'm based in Denver, and it's often 6 weeks plus to get in, not to mention rather expensive. So recently my driver's door handle stopped retracting after the auto presentation, and I'm filming a new intro because frankly I was already partway into the project before I decided that I should probably put something together, since I couldn't find anything else across the internet to help me out with this. So that's all right. This is a little bit more organized. I'll apologize for any of the future lighting, shaky cell phone footage that the rest of this video is going to contain. I will go through quickly tools that you'll need. Some pry tools. I just went to AutoZone and grabbed some fresh ones. I have some in my garage somewhere, but I couldn't find them. So a small collection, one rather wide one is nice, so I'd get one of those in there. You'll see later what the black stuff is stuck on here. A T20 Torx bit, not necessarily an endorsement. Well, it's a personal endorsement, but certainly not a paid one. But Silka is a kind of bicycle-oriented tool brand, but I love all of their tools. Very precise. They're magnetic. Anyway, T20 Torx bit, 10mm ratchet, an extension, also an 8mm socket, something to cut with. The more medieval it looks, the better. This is an old wood carving tool. You'll see why that's useful. Some dikes or wire cutters, and masking tape would also be useful to protect the door handle if you're going to try and reuse it later. So anyway, on to the repair. So first of all, the reason I'm replacing this door handle is because currently the truck is unlocked, and we'll see if it goes in here. So you might have noticed it hesitated there. It pretty much only closes this door handle once every dozen or so locks. I salvaged it once. You could hear it kind of binding up, and I had put in some, like I opened it up and got some WD-40 on an actual pivot. It was grinding, and that saved it for a couple of extra weeks, but it has got to the point now where oftentimes I'm just driving around with a truck that looks like it's excited to see everybody. So I ordered a replacement unit with the motor and everything off of eBay. Found one from a salvage site for like $115. Looks like most of them tend to go for like $250 in blue in particular, but more on that later. I'm actually going to try to remove this handle from the rest of the assembly and see if I can swap it to the cheaper color ones. But all that aside, let's go to the actual problem why we're shooting this video. So I already have these pieces removed. Apologies, you're not seeing a full video here. I had no intention of shooting a video for YouTube today when I started this project, but I decided that we needed one. So I've already got off. This goes behind the door handle here. I'll link a couple of videos below to some useful instructions I found for just getting the rest of this off. This all peels off. It's normal body or door panel clip attachments there if you've had any other car doors apart. Pretty standard. And then a collection of screws. These silver screws here actually do not need to come out. I'll show you where those came from. This one, however, does, and they are all from the same cluster. So in hindsight, it makes perfect sense that the assembly this goes into has some additional attachments to keep things from rattling, and that is not covered in most videos. So once you have this panel off of here, behind it, most of the other videos are going to tell you about a screw back here. Some videos will say there's not a screw here. Mine certainly had it. There's a screw here, and then there's a screw down in this, and most videos stop there. Right here is an attachment you have to get off. Those silver screws came from these 3 spots. They do not need to come out. I will be putting those back in before I take this the rest of the way apart. Long story short, take this bolt off. And I'm going to continue my disassembly now. I do still have some clips up here. Again, the videos I link will show there's some clips across here that you just pop out. Better to do it with the proper tools, but it's actually pretty easy to get your hand behind and just pop it out by hand. And yeah, I'll pick this up in a bit when I pull out the actual exterior door handle assembly. So once you get all the clips off, my door card's kind of hanging here with some tension on the actual release cable from the interior door handle down there. So in addition to removing that, there is also this connector for, you know, your power windows and everything else. So this clip was attached right here, super easy. That one's just a nice simple thumb press and it comes out. And then for the door handle, I'll update shortly, but it looks like we'll have a few screws holding this assembly that need to come out so that I can release this entire mechanism. Okay, so to get the door the rest of the way off, after all the clips, there were the 2 wires. This guy here for like your window controls and everything is a very simple release. Sorry for the bad lighting. Just a thumb press gets that off. This was a little bit trickier, but not too bad. Easiest way to do it is to come around the top with some needle nose pliers, and you can get a hold of this wire, and you'll need to pull it out basically to a 90-degree from the panel, and then it drops out the bottom. I'll show you what it looks like on the door. So the cable sits in here, and once you get it pulled around, it pull the cable down there, it drops that head out of that, so it'll come out. And the rest of the cable sits in this little clip here, and then that comes up through the back of this. Now I'm sure if you were being a bit more careful maybe than I was, you could probably take these 2 screws out and remove this. I managed to just work it out from under there and then grabbed it with my needle nose pliers and pulled it out of that clip, and then the door came off. I will say, if you have anybody who can help you, or just a nice stool you could put underneath this door card while you're working on it, that would be a lot easier. I was doing it myself, and thankfully it's somewhere no one will see. This is obviously all hidden inside the door ultimately, but I scuffed this up a bit on this. So this is where the bolt that's inside your door pocket holds on the bottom of the door card, and I was kind of balancing on this while I did it, and it slipped a couple of times, and it's sharp on the bottom, and it tore it up a little bit. But so anyway, here's the inside of the door with the door card off. Again, this is a Gen 1 R1T, obviously, given the cable actuated door handle here. In a Gen 2, I imagine this is going to look pretty similar coming off, but you probably do not have to deal with this onto the exterior handle removal. So now that the door card is off, this is what the interior of the Gen 1 R1T door looks like. So to get to the exterior door handle assembly, we're of course going to need to work through here. This whole plastic insert is attached with, basically looks like black, like RTV style silicone, or kind of like a tar tape possibly. The way it's gooping down here, I think it was probably an RTV that they just cleaned up pretty nicely. But if anybody knows exactly what that stuff's called, let me know in the comments. I would love to replace it with the same stuff, but worst case scenario, RTV is what's going in place. Of course, this is going to have to come off. It is just like a structural bar that the card attaches to. So back to, this is the piece that I started this entire video for, that the others didn't seem to address. So this is where that one screw is attaching that I hadn't seen in other videos. So this has to come off, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 other attachments. Once that's off, we'll get in underneath this with some prying tools. I think we have some like nice wide panel removers that should make it easy enough. And then we'll be back getting the rest of the assembly out. All right, so just coming back real quick here. This is RTV, or very similar, like I thought, and I just wanted to shoot a mid removal video here real quick. So you can see I've started working it away, and I'm just using some pry tools to keep it from just sticking back, because it remains enough, like tacky enough, it could start to re-adhere a bit, especially when it's as warm as it is here right now. But now that I have this amount out, I can actually get my hand behind it far enough and just kind of pull it off slowly. Like, I'm not going to be aggressive. Different people might feel differently. I want to be able to put this back stock. You could get more aggressive, of course, but I want this part to stay intact so I can put it back in. I'm sure it does some dust seal for us and probably a little bit of noise dampening, etc. So yeah, anyway, I've almost got this out now. I'll be back again shortly with, oh, and I guess I'll include I started with the plastic tools, and it's gummy enough that made it really tough. So I did get, this is actually like a wood carving tool. I just like it a little better than my regular like X-Acto knife or razor blade. And so I peeled it out a bit with the plastic pry tools, and once I had it stretched, I sliced it away a bit with this guy, and that made life a lot easier, moved a lot faster. Just obviously be careful, cut away from yourself, keep your fingers and toes. Okay, the door handle is finally out. I'm not gonna lie, that ended up being a bit more difficult than I had anticipated or hoped it would be. I didn't get any mid-process videos, as anybody knows that does much DIY. Sometimes you get in the middle of the stuff and you just kind of need to plow ahead. But a few things. One tip, if you're planning to reuse your door handle, I did come back and covered this with some masking tape, and that is because to pull it out, you do have to walk it past these studs in here. There's 3 of them, and that's a bit tight. The tape actually looks to have made it out pretty okay, although there is one little gouge here, so I'm gonna say it was worth the 10 seconds I took to do it. The other thing is, if your door handles are like mine and they won't close, this would be nearly impossible, or probably actually is impossible, without taking out this strut, which is what the window runs up and down on, and I did not want to do that. So I ended up fiddling with this, like I said earlier, 1 in every dozen times or so it would actually close for me. So I stood out here and locked and unlocked my truck over and over again until I finally got it to go in, and then things got a bit easier. And then to actually get it out, you have to lock it out below this motor, so you end up kind of sliding the whole handle up in front of this panel and then out here. It would have been really easy with this panel out, but I didn't want to remove a second one, and it does work if you work at it. The other things, so obviously when you're inside the truck, this handle faces like this. It is quite the contraption. This is where the cable is attached, similar to the inside door handle. Get on it with a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers, pull it around and slip that out. That's not too big of a deal. For the life of me, so there's some electrical wire that runs through here, and this cable actually comes around the top, feeds in through this. This is really easy, it just pops out. With my tools, which included, I ended up switching to this metal pry tool. Still couldn't get these to release, so I had to come in with a pair of dikes or wire cutters and just got up real tight and snipped those off. And then it ultimately is like a zip tie attachment, so I'm hoping I'll just be able to push them out and then I'll run a zip tie through them, because I do still want everything to be attached, of course. They are kind of unique. These guys are ultimately kind of like your standard, if you're familiar with other body clips. And they're finned, but they're wide enough that they've got a heck of an attachment, heck of a bite on there, and they would not come out. And then this one is actually a different style altogether. Yeah, it wouldn't come out for me either. So anyway, I'll deal with that when I put in the new one, and I actually have a whole new assembly coming, which may or may not have those on it. We'll find out. I'll deal with that when it gets here. So yeah, that's how to get it out. I'll include at the end of the video a couple of just still photos highlighting the different bolts that have to come out. The most sort of unordinary thing is just that this is really tacky, stretchy, nasty stuff. So getting that off was a little bit annoying, but not too difficult. Another thing, again, probably obvious once you start looking at it, these little tapes, they actually feel like a medical bandage. They're kind of stretchy and have that sort of fibrous feel to them. Anyway, these are on the door here and here. Peel those off or cut through them, whatever you want to do. These 2 don't need to come off. These top 2 are holding this strut in place for your window. But these other 2, once you take them out, looking through them, like you can see, let's see if I can get that to focus. That stud in there is one of the 3. There's another one, and the other one's up there. So those are, I just used a standard extension and a 10mm socket pulled those nuts out, and it's just the 3 of them to release this whole handle assembly. So there's 1 up front, 2 at the back, and then you unhook this whenever you want to, really. Probably easiest while it's still bolted in, but then those wires do come back through. Like that wire loom is what's held into these, so you gotta get it out of there. And all that stays inside of the truck. Yeah, now we wait for the new handle and we'll put in the new one. Oh, and one thing I'll do, which I'll dedicate a separate video to, but I want to see what it looks like to either fix this guy, or one thing I've honestly considered, if anybody's familiar with the Model 3 door handles, or I think Jaguar does some similar, I've really thought about just getting rid of the auto present anyway. That's a frequent feature request, and in an ideal world, we would just toggle that off. It looks like it's a pretty solid fixture, but at any rate, I'm going to see if I can figure out what makes this guy tick, and if I can either fix it or, again, just cancel that auto present and let them be manually actuated. This here is the motor assembly that actually does the presentation. It's got some interesting contacts down here that are position sensors. As the door handle is pulled open, well, I'll stop, but these are definitely sensing whether it's presented or not presented. I imagine the actual failure, if I could buy the smallest possible parts, is probably just those guys. But more on that later.